lock, but it's close enough. Awesome Golf Show. You know the deal by now. It's the end of the year. Ben Raza, Jason Roslin, we are ready to go. And I'm happy to say that Fantasy Draft has stuck with us. Our sponsor is back for another week. So shout out to them. I'm going to pass it to Jason. Talk a little about what they're doing over there.
Yeah. Thanks to the guys over at Fantasy Draft. So if you guys haven't heard by now, it's Rake Free Daily Fantasy. It's here. It's available only on Fantasy Draft. You can play your favorite contest rake free, where 100% of the entry fees are paid to contest winners. So for a limited time on Fantasy Draft, it's offering a free 7-day trial on your first $1,000. Use promo code OSMO to claim your 7-day free trial. So pretty interesting concept here. Obviously, rake can be such a killer in DFS over the long term. So definitely a nice, interesting concept, trying to change up the game a little bit. And anything, Ben, you want to add to that?
No, it's just another way. Obviously, they have that format where you're 7 golfers. And we're going to be talking about their pricing in the show, obviously. We got the BMW on tap here, 69 players. I thought we'd actually have less. It looks like Tiger's hanging in. RCB is on the course. It's just Kevin Na who's gone. So this
Good.
is
I'm glad he got that out of the way and decided not to kind of, screw us over, so to speak. So yeah, we'll get into that. There's a nice $10,000 GPP over on Fantasy Draft. Looks like, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's going to 1,000 to first. But anyway, still pretty good contest for the 70-man event. I do like the fact that you can pick 7 and drop that low score, especially in normal weeks when it's one guy that's screwing up your lineup.
Absolutely, yeah. In a cut week, that makes a difference. Obviously, this is a little different. Barring if you have a withdrawal this week, sorry to say you are toast, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Obviously, the top 30, this is the FedEx Cup. The top 30 move on to Eastlake. So if you're outside, you need a big week. If you're inside, you're trying to move up. Obviously, next week, we'll have to dig into that with the new starting points, with the leader getting that -10 and whatnot. We're not going to worry about that too much. They're at Medina. I wanted to ask you right off the top, what do you make of this course? Because it's pretty long, but there's a lot of, I don't want to say confusion, but there's some debate about how long it's really going to play.
Yeah, so it says 7,600 yards, par 72. But the thing about it is a lot of the yardage is derived from obviously a tee to hole or a tee to green faction. But a lot of these holes are going to be forced dog legs, either left to right or right to left. So if you're playing the shot shape correctly, it doesn't play quite as long because you can cut 20, 30 yards off of these dog legs if you're hitting the right shot. Of course, at the same token, if you're like Jordan Spieth, you could be 20 or 30 yards into the trees. But the thing is, you could be into the trees on the right hand, right hand side, the correct side, and you don't have that far in. So I think Jim Furyk kind of alluded to that when he played. It was the 2012 Ryder Cup. He kind of said, hey, look, it doesn't play that long as you play your angles correctly. So I think that's probably what, it's measuring to be 7,600 yards. But even Augusta probably is close to 7,700. It just doesn't play that. You see all types of people being able to compete there, not just the longest hitters. So, I'm not putting too much into the length of the course this week.
Fair enough. Like I said, I think it's not going to, distance is always going to help. There's no doubt about that, but you don't need to be long to succeed here. Obviously, the long par fives, nobody might be getting to the ones over 600, so that'll actually suit guys like Ryan Moore, guys like Furyk. If you want to go to that type of player, I'm not worried about it. Weather-wise, I'm not worried about anything. I don't see much. Course maybe is a little soft in the morning, but I don't see major wind or anything like that.
Yeah, it looks like Thursday morning. I checked this morning, and Thursday morning, guys, we're supposed to get 15 to 20 sustained winds. But remember, we don't have a cut this week. And our producer behind the glass reminded both Ben and I of that right before we came on the show, that it is a 70-man. It is a no cut. So even that half a shot of difference, let's just say, it looks like maybe more of a quarter of a stroke between the two spreads, the AM PM spreads. It's going to level out on Saturday because everybody makes it through. So honestly, I didn't even take a look at the weather because it really isn't going to matter. You can't get an edge. It's not like, 40 guys from the morning wave and 30 guys from the afternoon wave are going to make the cut. It's not the case. So this is a week where I didn't even look at it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not a concern for me either. So like I said, obviously it is a different week. We don't have as many plays. You don't have as many pivots in each range. And you should consider, you don't have to leave money on the table, but if you're playing a pretty chalky lineup and if you zero it out, you're probably going to run into some trouble in large field tournaments. There's not that many permutations.
No, and certainly we can get into it, and if somebody wants, we can give a check master's take here. If somebody's playing any Euro DFS, I took a look at the salaries and ownership, so we can I guess give a couple of minutes if somebody is interested in the chat. If we don't see it, we can just leave that to the wayside. But check masters is like $2,000 to first place, so not bad over on DraftKings. If we do end up running quickly, so with that being said, ownerships just dropped about 45 minutes ago from the guys over at Osmo, and they were a 94% last week. Pretty insane. Their biggest miss, I think, was a 3% or a 3.5% in the wrong direction. Pretty great stuff. So we can go right off the top. This week, we get 7 guys above 10K, which doesn't surprise me when Justin Rose was so popular at 9.6 last week. They got to move him up. They move him up above Justin Thomas, which is interesting because looks like he and or Adam Scott are going to be the 2 highest owned guys of the week. What do you make of just Justin Thomas now getting most of the looks above 10K?
I mean, you're looking at a guy that the putting is really holding him back. The form is there. The finishes are not what he obviously hasn't found the winner's circle, but he's lurking. It's not like he's way back in the pack, and he's just not putting up to speed. So I totally understand going there. He's cheaper if you're paying up relative to guys like Rahm, like Rory, who I think in a vacuum make the best plays. We were talking before the show. Rahm's run is just ridiculous right now. Playing fantastic. The wild card guy, I can't believe I'm really saying it, is DJ because he's really not playing well. Losing strokes off the tee, not consistently, but that's so atypical. I really don't know what to make of him. You're going to get some ownership discount, but at the same time, it's hard to really feel super comfortable by going to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And to finish or piggyback on JT, since the miscut at the Memorial, which was by and large his first real start after coming back from that injury that he had for a little while, but it looks like he's gained in the last 5 measured events, he's gained at least 0.96 on average, so at least just about 4 strokes with his approaches. So obviously, the approaches are in form. He finally found a little bit of a putter. He only lost a stroke at the Northern last week, which has been good for him. He had been on a streak of being really bad. So if he can put it all together, I really like the way JT's game is trending this week. Plus, you're getting the salary discount from the other guys if you need it this week. Sometimes you may not need it. DJ is interesting. He had the lead right through 36 holes last week, and then he just literally disappeared. He faltered all the way back to 24th. I mean, pretty pathetic. It's been mediocre, 8,000 salary type golf. I can't pay 10-7 for DJ this week.
It's tough. If there was a massive ownership discount, then you start saying, okay, it's worth the dice roll. But he's still going to garner plenty. You have Rose lurking. We mentioned JT, and I really do like Rory and Rahm. I know they're going to be popular, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to play them. I can find other ways to leverage and differentiate. So I squeezed in a little DJ just because I think we all know how good he is. But I'm more in line with you that it's a tough ask to really hitch your wagons to a guy that's, I don't know, there's something just off in the game right now. And we haven't even talked about, I guess I should ask you, but I'll tell you right off the top. I have some lineups that have none of these guys and start very balanced.
Yeah, absolutely. I think JT was one for me that I had trouble coming off of. You mentioned Rory. I think that Rory has probably been, it's hard to say the most consistent, but it is. I read an article today just about Rory. I like to read individual articles about players because it just doesn't normally sway my mindset of trying to take in a whole view. So anyways, with the article that said about Rory, he's had one of the greatest worst seasons in the history of the game. And it is true. He's had, 2 pretty big wins. He won the Canadian Open. He won the Players' Championship, a huge win. But he's really faltered in majors this year. He hasn't kind of stepped up to the plate. Now, if he ends up finishing this off and wins the FedEx Cup, I mean, it's going to be a great season. But again, no major. So I do, however, like Rory this week. If I'm going to pay up for anybody that high, it was Rory that I went to.
I mean, you don't have to sell me on Rory, obviously. The wins, it's been a little disappointing. It felt like he let a couple slip away here, but I don't really worry about it. He can close. I'm not doubting any of that. And he's just been there, and I expect him to be there once again. This course should suit his game. Obviously, off the tee, he has no problems, and he's actually putting pretty well. So if he can fix the irons, we'll be just fine with Rory.
Yeah, he gained over 4 strokes last week in putting, so that's definitely impressive. And when somebody as good as off the tee as he is sees that number, it's something you want to keep an eye on. Also, one more behind the glass guy, Josh. I'll give him another shout out here. He asked us about Koepka, and he said, "Look, one of the next 2 weeks he's gonna have to care, right? Because we're talking about 10 million. He hasn't won the FedEx Cup yet, so." This week, it seems 7,600 yards, a major style course. I mean, obviously, we've seen how good he is in majors. Maybe this is the week. I like to get my exposure to Brooks on FanDuel because his salary relative to his DraftKings price is always cheaper. Also on FantasyDraft too, it looks like he's not the most expensive guy. He's below Rory. So I would look to Koepka on FanDuel and FantasyDraft this week. DraftKings is just too expensive for me.
Same here. It's Brooks. He's great, but you're paying a premium, and you're obviously not going to be able to get Rahm or Rory unless you really punt the rest of your lineup.
Yep.
So not for me, really. I just would rather play those other guys. I just think that we'll see what Brooks is made of. He's obviously in the top end position. 30 guys. He should be holding the lead if he plays well, and then we'll see if he can take down the FedEx Cup.
Yeah, I think there's some lines out there of him winning, but don't need to put any money on that yet. But I would have to say Brooks would probably be my guess to pick to win. So okay, we can go down to the 9,000 range. Just a quick note: you're going to get Koepka, Reed, and McIlroy tomorrow morning at 10:45. That's your first featured group off tomorrow morning, and I think you're going to match up with Xander Schauffele and his group, Abraham Answer maybe as well. Let's talk about Xander Schauffele because I see you shaking your head there, and I had made a note. He was also a pretty big play for me. Only time under 9,000 all year that Xander didn't pop and pay off his salary, then some. So this week he's 8,600. What's going on with him, man? Why did he miss the cut last week?
He was really not good. It was the short game, which is a little less concerning. But at the same time, Xander hasn't been in the best form. We know he's kind of got that big game. He gets up for majors. He gets up for WGCs. This is a guy who won the Tour Championship. I still am a little skeptical. We also said, and truth be told, there are just some guys where for some reason you don't get them right. And Xander and me don't mix. I seem to jump on him at the wrong time. I know that's somewhat subjective, but as we look just to these next tiers, there are so many other guys. When you talk about Tommy Fleetwood, Adam Scott, we're going to get into Ricky. Your boy Spieth is there. I'm interested to see what you say about him. Patrick Cantlay is going to be very popular and clearly is someone that you could start teams with if you wanted to go more balanced.
So let's talk about Cantlay for a second. Gets 9-2 last week, comes up, throws 96 points out there, comes in a tie for 12. Just another solid week for Cantlay and a cornerstone of most people's lineups. He was 40% owned in the 2,100. I think even probably higher owned in the Fantasy Golf World Championships with you.
Yeah, he's quite popular.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to get a little bit of a reduction. Looks like the guys at Osmo have him at 15% this week. If that ends up being the case, I think I do want to leverage it here. Looks like he's in great form. However, the ball striking wasn't that good last week.
No.
He ended up losing strokes on the approach, saved by the putter, which, we've seen him do. We saw him do at the U.S. Open. He was able to bounce back the next week at the Travelers and gained just about 2 strokes ball striking per round there. So are we betting on a bounce back round from Cantlay, or are we worried about the putter saving him?
It was really frustrating because I was not on him a ton, and I really felt that was an opportunity to get – when you try to dodge a really good player, when they don't strike it well, you want to take advantage as much as possible, and he chipped in for a streak. That was really a killer on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And the putter was great. So I have to admit I've always ripped on Cantlay's short game, and he's made tremendous strides this year. His around the green game it's not great, but it's certainly not a weak link. And that could be important again this week. I think he gets over 15% for what it's worth. I do think he could creep into the 20s. People just like Cantlay, and he didn't kill anyone last week, even though he didn't have the best ball striking numbers. I'm more apt to take a little discount and go down to a guy like Fleetwood.
So the one iota of Cantlay's game when he came back was he was terrible from the greenside bunker, and like you just mentioned, around the green. He's only lost strokes around the green for the whole tournament twice since the Genesis, which was in February. So great call there. Just really been able to show that up, and it shows. I mean, he's close to top 10 in the world, if not already there, and he is one of the most elite ball strikers. I just sense a huge win from him coming in the next 12 months, whether it's a major or the Players or something like this, a WGC. We saw him pick up the Memorial, which is probably the best non-WGC, non-Players, non-major tournament of the year, or at least one of them. Wells Fargo also up there as well. So, that one was a big one for him to get a big step in his career, and certainly a win here or a win next week would certainly be a huge step in that direction. Any case, do love him at 15%, 20%. Yeah, I mean, I don't love him as much. It just means that my 3x turns into 2x.
Yeah. What do you make? Chat brought this up, and I think it's a good question to explore. Similar price range. We've got Adam Scott and we've got Webb. Obviously, Webb has cooled off a bit. He wasn't crisp either, but his putter is just unstoppable. Adam Scott, I thought, quietly came fifth. He snuck up there on Sunday, posted a good round. Yep. Do you have a preference there? Are you going to either of these guys?
Yeah, I went more to Adam Scott. I'm not playing Webb at 9,500. I just can't do it yet in this field. If it was the Wyndham and he was, top of the board, I'd love to play him at 10K, right? But I just can't play Adam Scott I just can't play Webb Simpson at 9,400 when I have Tommy Fleetwood at 9. I've got Tony Finau at 8,500. And I know Webb has pretty much smoked the two guys that I've just mentioned, recently. Tommy Fleetwood's had some pretty good starts, obviously, just losing to Lowry at the Open. But I guess I'm just more apt to take the salary savings. Even a guy like Spieth, who, I was flying. I went home I call it home. I live in Florida now, but home is still Rhode Island. I flew home on Thursday, and I landed to him shooting a bogey-free round. What is that? And not just I think he ended up losing strokes in that first round putting, and he was bogey-free. What do you make of that from Spieth? Because we saw a totally different Spieth Saturday at the Wyndham the last time we talked about him.
I make that Spieth has a real knack for just playing really well Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, I don't know why that is. Even the first shot on Saturday was right into the drink.
Right. I mean, it did not take long for those Saturday demons. No, we'll say he bounced back on Sunday, right? And
he did. He played well.
Yeah.
Putting obviously is carrying him, but
putting carrying him for sure.
For me, there's two guys that I want to delve into right below him.
Yep.
One is Ricky Fowler, who had an awful implosion on the 36th hole to miss the cut, hit it out of bounds. That was just sloppy.
Man, what happened there? That was terrible.
Yeah, just bad. And the other guy who was great, and he was one of the reasons I was able to hang in despite the Griot debacle, was Usti. He was on fire with the irons, gained 9 strokes. I know there's something, and Chad's already pointed this out, it does feel a little trappy to try to parlay multiple good Usti weeks. Maybe the mattress doesn't sleep so soundly tonight. You got to worry about a lot of things with him. I do have some interest. He is playing really well, and if he strikes it like that, I'll take that every week, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's scaring people. 8,700 for him, and you can see projected, less than 10% or right at 10%. I think, let's see what the guys have meant. Yeah, 10.5%. So pretty medium or mild ownership there. I get nervous with him at 8,700 just because this just feels like it feels like a withdrawal spot. It feels like we haven't had a Louis Oosthuizen withdraw in a while. So I feel like we're bound to one. He was a really smart play last week, though. You end up having him on an FWGC team?
I did. My one good one, which, that's a whole separate Griot debacle, but he was great, and just when he gets like that, smooth swinging Louis, it's really cool to see. I'm willing to go to him. I'm willing to go to Ricky. I know that miscut was ugly, but those are the type of plays, in that it's obviously the next tier down, but it's still guys that are towards the top, 15,000 ish, give or take on fantasy draft, mid eights on DraftKings. I'm going to pepper that range a lot as we work down. And then we have guys, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say about Bryson. Just, are you interested with this whole slow play thing kind of fueling a narrative?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm definitely interested to see how he responds, because he's really taking an onus on himself to put himself in front of the microscope now at this point, by fueling the rage of everybody that's basically blaming him for it, right? He went on the Barstool podcast and talked about it for quite a while. He did that video today from the golf course where he dropped an F-bomb and started to talk about it. So, man, I'll tell you something. It's super clear that he's letting it affect him. Now, can he channel that effect and be like, all right, I need to go out and win so I can shut everybody up? And not only shut everybody up, but he's going to still love them, just like he said today in his little video. And I like a golfer that may have a little extra motivation. However, if it turns against him, just think about how, Bryce Harper in Philly, everybody absolutely, no matter where he is, they hate him. They hate him in Philly. They hate him outside of Philly, right? It could turn into a little bit of that for Bryson DeChambeau if he ends up playing poorly. He misses these 6-footers that he's taking 9 minutes on. If that continues, man, people are they're not gonna like him anymore.
So, yeah, you don't want to trying to play doctor is a dangerous game when we try to get in these guys' head. It does seem like he's embracing this.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it just widens a little the range of outcomes. I could see him, if it goes bad, it could go really bad. Bad. I do think there is a window where he comes out, not that he's not going to come out and try to win if this didn't happen, but if Bryson looked phenomenal and blew a field away like we know he can, it wouldn't stun me. Bryson has that ceiling. He won back-to-back FedEx Cup events. I know he was in different form last year, but this is a guy that has top-end talent. I'm willing to say that's worth some shots, some shares in GPPs. Him and Decky's a whole nother set of problems, but they're in that low 8K range, and I have no problem taking some stabs there.
Yeah, it's been a little while since he lost in that shootout to Matt Wolff at the 3M, where he gained over 4 strokes with the approaches. It's been since then. He's had a couple of bad weeks with the approaches. It led to the missed cut 4 weeks ago at the Open. So a little to be nervous about there, I think. But at 8,300, you got to start to be interested. And then you got Hideki Matsuyama. 8,200 this week. He was trying out new putters. The putter actually hasn't been that bad, though. Last week, the approaches were the worst we've seen them all year. And I'm not joking. I mean, I went back all year. He lost
for sure
over 2 strokes in 2 rounds, obviously, with the missed cut. Looks like ownership was plummeting. He came in at 13% last week. However, the price discount, 8,200 now, looks like he's shooting back up to 15%. People aren't worried. What are you doing with Mats this week?
I'm willing to take some shots. I think that was more of an anomaly with the irons. That's a strength of his game. Even during this bad stretch, that wasn't the problem. And ownership-wise, there's so many plays in this like little micro range. I don't see anyone getting crazy popular because there are guys that are still going to drag some with Kuchar, Day, Sneds. They're not going to be popular, but they're not going to be, this is only a 69-man field. They're going to garner some ownership. I think they make reasonable one-offs. But Decky, I still think that I can get there. Not going to overhaul my lineups, but if you're talking middling ownership for a guy where his price point is this depressed, I know it's because of the form. I have no problem with that in a non-cut.
So Matt Kuchar gained just over 2 strokes on his approaches, but lost
the putting.
4 on the putting and another 3 on his off the tee game. I'll be honest with you, man. That is not what you want to have here at Medina. You look when Tiger roasted the field back in 06 and 99, and that's exactly where he gained his strokes, was on putting and off the tee. Now, I'm not saying that's an ideal recipe for success here. I think that you still got to, the approaches, you still want a good ball striker. However, I think that putting and being in position off the tee could help you. So, going back to Spieth for maybe 2 seconds, I think if he does put the ball semi in play, he could actually really compete here. We've seen him compete on major type courses all year, even though he's had a really bad year. So, with that being said, I think that I'm pretty much just going to fade Matt Kuchar to no end here. I just don't see a reason to play him. He has not played well. I don't know if he's hurt or there's, something bothering him or he's got a hamstring injury or a quad. Something's going on that we don't know about because the form has been terrible since the U.S. Open.
Not playing good. There's no doubt about that. And the last thing I'll say, just to get back to Decky for 1 second, and it relates to a question in chat, which I probably should have just asked you this. Decky's right on that border right now. He needs a good week or he's not going to make East Lake. For me, I'm not looking at the standings too much, but I will say in tiebreaker situations, having a guy that needs a good week or is on that buffer zone, it can only help because he's not assured of East Lake by any stretch.
$400 less, a guy that you and I just wrote off all year. I mean, I think for the most part, I played him in a couple $150 lineups, which you and I we won a couple of times this year. It's going to be Jason Kokrak. He's number 32. He's got a chance to make East Lake. I mean, this is crazy. He's a great golfer, way better than me, obviously. I just can't believe the season he's having. It might be his best season of his career. Are you ready to buy in?
I'm closer to buying in than I've ever been. I have some exposure. So, chat, those are baby steps. That's what you're going to get from me. Tee Green, fantastic. I still will say what I say with him all the time. On non-shootout type courses, if he's scrambling a little bit, these are small greens. This is not an easy course. He is an awful scrambler. That's not going to change. That hasn't changed even during this luck box run.
Yep.
So I'm still skeptical. You look, yes, you can play a fine player there, but you have guys like Woodland, like Molinari, who are clearly better players, but it's a 1 week thing. I totally understand it doesn't work like that. For me, I would drop to Kisner or Ryan Moore. I like the way, even on a long course, they can attack this. I have no problem getting to them in the mid-sevens.
10 out of the last 11 tournaments, he's lost strokes around the green. Now, granted, some of them could be like a quarter of a basis point per round, but he's silly bad around the greens.
Stupid bad.
That being said, ball striking is equally as good. He's gained strokes ball striking every single tournament this year except the Memorial. So if you want somebody that is having a career year ball striking, that defines it right there for Jason Kokrak. Found myself playing a little of him. However, there's two guys he's kind of sandwiched in the middle of. Call him 3, call it 4 actually. With Tiger Woods, Gary Woodland, Colin Morikawa, and I know a guy that we talked about the show, and I can assure you, Bubba Watson is a guy that I never get right. You told me before the show that this next guy, Francesco Molinari, is one that it just never works for you. Is this the week maybe that you maybe get it right?
No. Oh, no. There's no chance I get it right. I am using him a bit. Okay. So buyer beware. I mean, the last time, I'm still scarred from when I was like, oh, nice. This was months ago. He's got like an unplayable lie against the grandstand. Not only did he get out of it, he just made it.
He made par. Yeah.
When he just gets nuclear inferno hot, that was around the match play.
Yep.
But Molinari, obviously, the putter has really cooled off, which we've seen for long stretches of his career. He lost, I think it was 7 strokes last week. That's not what you're looking for. There are options, though, in this range when you look down just across the sites. Dare I say, Mark Leishman, 13,700 on FantasyDraft, 7,500 on DraftKings. It's a roller coaster right now. He has looked awesome at a place like Memphis for the WGC. He missed the cut by 20 strokes in the Open, and he was god-awful again last week.
I mean, really bad, though, right?
Horrendous.
Every single part of his game, he lost strokes on. Putting was the worst. Yeah, Leishman is a guy that, I understand at 7,500, 8,400, it's pretty cheap on FanDuel, FantasyDraft. He seems 13.
You're muted. I can't hear you. It's true. Times are tough. It gives me a chance to talk about Jason Day. Chad brought him up. I'll say this. I kind of glossed over him. I thought we could get away with maybe not talking about him, but that's not the case. I have some Day, there's no doubt about it, but not getting crazy.
That was weird. Do you hear me? We
Oh,
good?
I hear you.
Yeah, that was weird. Just kind of like stop. Normally, like I have to like hit my mic because I have a very sensitive microphone, especially when we're talking about Mark Leishman.
The
So
Aussies.
I don't know what happened there. So yeah, just to finish up on Leishman, I would not use him in a cash game setting, although the price may lead to it because it seems as good value. It's just we don't know where his game is. I mean, he could be top 5, and he could be in the bottom field withdrawing. So I'm going to stay away.
The President's Cup team, not that this is super important, is just a shit show right now because it's at Royal. I said this yesterday. It's at Royal Melbourne. Leishman and Day are supposed to be leading this charge.
Oh boy.
And right now, they're not playing too well. Day is, as Chat has reminded me, I've been just burning money with him. I certainly have some exposure, but I've toned it down because he is just a mess. He fired Stevie Williams. It's just, I don't know what to expect from him. Cautiously optimistic at best.
Yeah, I admittedly I've been off of this the Day bandwagon, and I jokingly made a comment and said, "Is the Day obsession close to my Spieth obsession?" And no, it's not.
Not yet, no.
However, the form is just it's not quite there for Jason Day at this point. Putting last week was the reason why he missed the cut, which is a good sign because he has been over the course of his career statistically one of the, if not the best putters out there. Interesting at 8,100. I'm definitely a little more interested this week than I have been because I know he's going to get 4 rounds. He's got a former, a former pro now and a friend that's going to jump on the bag. So maybe that gives him a little bit of insight or a little bit more.
Can't be worse. So.
It can't. Yeah, right. I guess I'm trying to say it can't get any worse. That's what I'm trying to get to. But with that being said, does that make me more inclined to go to somebody like Ian Poulter, who's, had back-to-back top 10s and nobody still wants to play? It seems like maybe this week he'll finally get some love. But are you more apt to play Poulter, or are you just going right back to Day?
So normally it would be I'd have 0% Poulter, and it would be all Day. I have found ways to kind of split that difference, get more of a well-rounded portfolio when we get into that pure middle range. And we'll see. Like I said, I am still more optimistic than most with Day. I think he's going to be just fine long-term, but I have to tone it back. You can't just, I'm living proof that you shouldn't just blindly say pot committed. Let me keep going.
Yep. Poulter, just speaking on him, gained 7 strokes on the approach last week. That's straight fire. If that continues, obviously he'll be right there again this week, but I think that's probably a little overextended. I think we see that regress, and I just don't know if his off-the-tee game is suited for a 7,600-yard course like this. Well, of course, we'll see. Obviously, he played. Did he play in the 2012 Medina one? I'm not sure if he did, but in any case, I think we can head down now to the 7,700 range. You mentioned Kevin Kisner. Looks like my model for some reason. I think you and I both mentioned here, we are not people that rely on models to make our lineups. We have a lot of different other factors, including ownership and such like that. Kevin Kisner was a guy you mentioned in this range. It's pretty much a dead range for me, though. I don't love a lot until we get down to Neiman and Putnam. How about you?
It's somewhat of a dead range. I do like Kisner, and I don't mind Ryan Moore. They're more correlated strongly together and strongly with maybe it not playing so aggressive off the tee. If there's a lot of rollout, things like that, they're certainly not the longest hitters out there. That's for sure. And then you get down, you just alluded to this. You have Neiman, Benny On, and Sun J.M., obviously both the South Korean guys. I have no problem with either. I think just talented, better than most in that range. I would lean to Im if I had to. Just I think it's a guy that kind of can handle more tracks and just kind of do his thing.
Yeah, so ready for this. You mentioned the President's Cup, and this week we got Justin Harding playing down at the Web.com Tour Finals from South Africa. He got the invite of making enough FedEx Cup points during the year. Then he is number 11, Jazz Janawatan, who I believe is playing in the Czech Masters. He's number 10 on the money. And then number 12 is the guy you just mentioned, Sung JM, and he's my favorite. And then number 14 is Byung An. I believe that the automatic qualifications of the top 8 end this week. So it's a huge week. If Sung JM comes in the top 10, I believe he qualifies. And Sung JM, what I like about him is that even though he came in 38th last week because he had one bad round, he still put up 86 DraftKings points. He had 2 eagles. Again, one bad round for him. 2 weeks ago, again, one bad round. Still, the points are there. The finishes seem to be there. I'm not going to say I'm all in, but I'm definitely hitching a good amount of my wagon to Sung JM this week.
Similar, like I said, one of my favorite plays when we look at that. Now we're getting towards the savers. 13,200 on FantasyDraft, 7,200 on DraftKings, only 8,200 on FanDuel. Across the board, I think he's playable and very viable. This is where, for me, talk about a dead range. Right below them,
yeah,
I'm not really. Guys like Glover, CH3, Ches, I get a little, but I'm not looking. Scott Piercy, not for me. Don't have a ton of interest. I would rather maybe take even more if I had to go and dip into the low range than take one of these guys.
Yeah, me too. And certainly we can get into them. Before we do, I wanted to ask you about 2 guys that I'm relatively high on. Both played great last week. Both had pretty low ownership. Here's what I'll say about one. Joaquin Niemann has gained strokes on his approach every tournament since the Memorial. We're on 8 straight. You and I talked so much about his approach game in the beginning of the year being one of the catalysts of getting him back to where he was at the end of last year, and he went through a period just where he wasn't doing much. Now he's finally gotten a rhythm. His putting is finally back. Are you ready to play him? We said on this show last week, we said if he plays well at a tough course, then I think that we can buy back in. And he, for all intents and purposes, he did. He came in 30th last week, scored 80 DraftKings points, which put him in the top 25. Are you ready to go back to Niemann? Because I think I am.
It was a definite step in the right direction. Now, he easily could have got cut, but he didn't. He made it on the number, and then on Sunday he was fantastic. And it really was the number of 6-8 footers that he had and buried. Believe me, I was watching because I really didn't need him to play well, and he was very impressive.
Yeah,
scored really well, and we know the talent is there. It's just it takes these guys. We've talked about this at length. When they're in attack mode and they're going at every pin at the John Deere, it's a different mentality than what you need to do tomorrow. And Niemann's starting to get that. So I definitely have Sung Im ahead of him, but I have no problem with Niemann. Now, Andrew Putnam, who I have a feeling you're going to mention.
Yeah, he's the next one.
Your boy.
Yeah.
I told you, this guy, he's another kryptonite. Do you think he can kind of do his thing again? Because he's off the tee very weak, but he seems to just mask that with fantastic putting and very good irons.
So I have been a champion of Putnam, right? And I decided to get super, super cute, which is never a freaking good thing, right? I had a great team, finished in 17th in the $500. It had Scott, Reed, and Rahm. And it was sitting there with Sergio freaking Garcia instead of Putnam. And it was my last stupid play of the week. I had Putnam on one other team. I'm like, I don't need 2 Putnams in the 500. Well, it cost me first place. Obviously, Putnam outscored Garcia by 60. And I think I lost the first by 40. So I would have had the nuts lineup. Would have, could have, should have. However, it is off the tee. He hasn't gained strokes off the tee since the Charles Schwab. And before that, he didn't gain strokes off the tee all year. So is that me? Am I good? Am I here? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I thought it said connection. So anyways, he didn't gain strokes all year except for once at the Charles Schwab. So obviously his strokes gained off the tee has not helped him back. He's made it all the way here, and he's got a chance to make it to East Lake with a really good start. So I'm not overly obsessed with him. I would probably take him in a one-off, but I think I go to him just as much as I go to Niemann with guys second place in that range.
That's really where I'm at. They're all behind him for me, and I didn't need to dip there a ton. And then I'll say, just to kind of work down a little bit, I'm taking a shot, and this kind of shot in the dark with Adam Hadwin. He's not playing great, but he can gain off the tee, doesn't mind long irons. He's always crafty around the greens. it's a step up, and like I said, the form isn't really building towards anything. But I didn't see a ton that I liked. I know Keegan is sitting there. Obviously, I'm gonna suck it up and say a few words about Griot without trying to cry. But other than that, I don't see a ton in that range. So I took a stab with Adam Hadwin, who I don't think will be even remotely popular.
I take it he probably cost you the FWGC with the way you're talking about it, more than
Oh
likely.
yeah. I mean, I came in 7th with him, but it was I should have just used answer, and then I would have broke the all-time scoring record. That was not even close for me. But yeah, Griot.
No, 11th place finish is nothing to write home about. I mean,
No, I was very happy. I just him missing that cut and then giving the finger on the 36th hole summed it up to the cameras. So,
oh, did he? See, I missed that.
yeah, I mean, he was blasting around the green, second. He lost 9 strokes with the short game. I mean, look at the stats.
Six strokes. Yeah, I've got 6 strokes ball striking in 2 rounds.
Yeah, he was highly disturbing, and he missed.
Actually, your other cohort, your other co-host for Tuesdays, I think he put out a tweet at Fantasy Golfman Tim, and it was a great one. He's like, most people can't gain 6 strokes ball striking in 4 rounds. Griot did it in 2 and missed the freaking cut. Oh, it's unbelievable.
It was rarefied air disturbing. It's hard not to, even though he left it, and it wasn't just obviously a lot of people used him. Yeah, I'm going back. I don't know how you don't. You can't. And when I say this, I mean it. It's really hard to actually be worse with that short game. He had a triple, and then he was 5 over through 4 holes. He did rally. It's just he should have soared through the cut. There was no reason for him to not. So if he can continue that ball striking, 6,700 is a steal and a half.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking him a lot on FanDuel as well at 7,600, and I'm going to verify that he's real cheap over here on FantasyDraft as well, 11,900. Which, you know, I just have Koepka and Griot in front of me, and we've got 14,000 left to spend, and we're talking about guys like Kokrak, Morikawa, Molinari, Jason Day. You know, that call it low 8K range on DraftKings. You could put Koepka and Griot and get 5 more guys in that range. So definitely provides some great salary flexibility. I see absolutely no reason to go back to him. He's not going to miss the cut here this week. We've never seen the guy withdraw. Obviously, he's close in ball striking. I don't really care that much about the putting or around the greens because we're going to get 4 rounds. However, I'm going to go the total opposite side with this next guy. And I love this guy because I get 4 rounds of a great driver of the ball and a great putter. And that's Wyndham Clark down at 6,400. Do you have a feeling I was going here?
It's a guy that you know you've mentioned him throughout the year, and obviously just to be in the top 70, he battled last week to get here. The guy, it's really tough for me. You know, there are certain guys that just buck the system, and he's one of them. He's an awful iron player, but he's a very, very good driver.
Using PXG irons, probably that's why.
He needs to fix it, or he'll be with Bo Hostler. Great putter. So I get that. It's just very hard when, you know, strokes gained approach translates across all courses.
No doubt.
Not breaking any news. And he doesn't do that, but he has a way to get it done. Fratelli is there. The guy that I wanted to mention, do you have, and this is, I think you're a fan of this guy. Do you have any CT Pan feel?
So he had a decent week last week. Scoring was okay. Approach looked good. He's just so volatile. And on these major type courses, so I believe Medina, you know, has hosted a couple of majors. He really struggles. I mean, he was nowhere close to any of the cut in any of the majors he played in this year. None. I mean, Bethpage, not even close. U.S. Open, not even close. The Open Championship, not even close. So I would rather, I guess, go to Wyndham Clark because the reason what's turned me on to him is since the RBC Canadian Open, in 5 tournaments, he's gained 2 or more strokes putting, which is great. So that's 5 of 7 starts. And off the tee, he's gained in 4 of his last 6 starts. So I guess that's what it was to me is like, yeah, I know he's a really bad iron player. He's lost 6 of his last 7 starts. He's lost strokes on his irons. It's terrible. But I get 4 days of a guy that can absolutely launch it off the tee and is good in putting. I think that's what, you know, taking basically the other side of Griot, that's what Clark is to me. So I found myself going to more Clark. I found myself going to more Keith Mitchell over CT Pan. Keith Mitchell is terrible at putting. He lost 6 strokes putting last week and still managed to put up 65 DraftKings points. So if he matches the field, that's probably up to 80 pretty quickly. And then I went all the way down, if I had to. I went to Adam Long. And the reason why I went to Adam Long is because if you look at all of the starts that he's made the cut or played 4 rounds, he hasn't scored less than 74 DraftKings points. So that's what I'm going with there, that he's a good enough player over those 4 rounds where he makes enough birdies and the salary the points pay the salary. That's what I'm looking for there. I don't think he's going to come top 15. I'm just looking for him to maybe make an eagle or two.
For me, it's Ryan Palmer.
Okay, makes sense.
Awful. Talk about, he was in the Griot bucket, lost 3.8 strokes gained putting, 4.5 around the green. I don't know how that's even possible.
Yeah.
Very, very disturbing. But it's someone that we know can strike the ball, plenty of experience. He's right at the min, basically. So $6,200 Ryan Palmer on DraftKings is something that I found myself saying, okay, if I really need to punt, 11,800 on FantasyDraft. He's someone, over there you can take that shot with, and if you throw him out, you get to drop one anyway. So that would be my real cheapie, not Cameron Champ, as Chad has pointed out. Just stop.
Yeah, I was gonna say next two guys, Cameron Champ and Kevin Tway, both threw up top 25s last week. No interest.
Cameron Champ was playing with Griot. He I don't want to even say Space Jam because that would require taking the talent, but it was just he just shouldn't just no. I would rather play I'd rather play Max Homa if I had to, or even Killa Keith, who I have no interest in. But these are not guys. I do think that some people will see, oh, this course is 7,600 yards. Like, I need to play Cameron Champ. You don't need to do that. Could he play well? Sure, he could play well, but I don't see that happening.
So I take it my quick little 24th place, 80.5 DraftKings points plug for Kevin Tway didn't get you. Is he one that you'd play? Okay, so there's that big $8 this week, right? Million guaranteed. Is he one that you would focus on there or not? I shouldn't say focus. Maybe put him at 10% of your lineup, somewhere in that range.
I have no issues with Tway. I actually like his game a lot. He's super aggressive off the tee. We've seen some upside, timely putter. Certainly outmatched in a field like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Most of these guys are. I didn't get there in any meaningful lineups, but in flyer situations, when you're mixing and matching down low, there's only a couple of guys I even think make remote sense. Ryan Palmer, for me, CT Pan, you mentioned Clark. Tway could be in that type of bucket for sure.
Yeah, I was good. I was really happy to see Tway bounce back and pretty much gain strokes everywhere last week after 2 abysmal starts. I mean, the WGC, he was so bad. He scored 46.5 DraftKings points in a no-cut event. That is so bad. And then missed the cut at I believe he missed the cut at the Wyndham. So it had gotten really, really bad. Excuse me. So I'm not really sure. However, like I said, it was nice to see him bounce back. I'm a little interested there. He is the min price basically across the board. So a couple other guys down low. Vaughn Taylor has been very consistent of late. We don't really need consistent this week, though.
That's the problem.
Right. 72 DraftKings a week ago, 78 2 weeks ago. Decent scoring. But we don't need a guy to finish 35th, 40th, and put up 70 points this week. I think we can get that out of Adam Long is, I guess, my point.
The guys like that a lot of, I mean, you just said this, a lot of their appeal is that they're going to give you 4 rounds and their ceiling is not really there. The Ryan Armours of the world, guys that you use in cash a lot, and Vaughn Taylor fits that. I would rather take a blind stab with someone where I'm like, you know what? More often than not, this guy probably finishes at the bottom, but if I get him right, he could crash the party up top. Vaughn Taylor to me is not that type of guy. So
agreed.
I'd rather go with someone where I'm saying, you know what? I'm looking for, you're talking about the big $8. You're not looking for that guy to come in 36th instead of 60th. You're looking for him to come in 8th 1 out of 50 times. And just that could be the difference. Yep,
absolutely. So one more guy before we just had our Slack chat ask us about Justin Rose. And we actually didn't spend too much time on him. He's the only thing I had mentioned was that he was very popular at 9.6 last week and got the bump up to 10.2. Looks like some ownership followed him. It doesn't look like he'll get 20% like he was last week. So I think there's a little angle there. But the guy I wanted to ask you about is this might be his last start as a full-time PGA Tour member as he turns 50 next year. And I'm talking about Phil Mickelson. I'm joking. He's obviously going to be a full-time member. Maybe. He's going to go to the Champions Tour. There's no doubt about it. Probably better suited for the Champions Tour at his game at this point because it's been gone for quite a while. But at 6,500, maybe a little bit.
I looked. I didn't completely X him out, but then I looked, and then because he, no joke, loses like upwards of 5 strokes off the tee every time he tees up. And I don't know how you recover from that. I know he'll make some, he can make a streak. He gets hot. It's just so hard when he's in the Wesley Bryan territory right now, and that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's Jordan Spieth around and on the greens anymore, where he can negate losing 6 strokes in a round with extremely good putting and chipping. He's not that. He hasn't been that all year. He hasn't gained more than 1.2 strokes for the entire tournament since the Genesis, where he only gained 2 strokes putting. So tough spot for Phil when you're so bad off the tee. However, 6,500, I'm interested at least a little bit.
He needs to just get flat. Look, he's in the game plan now where it's just like, all right, just somehow lose like 1 stroke off the tee. Nothing where it takes you out of it, because the rest of his game isn't in shambles. But when you're starting behind the 8 ball that much, it puts ungodly amount of pressure on the rest. So not for me. If I was playing, full disclosure, I'm not playing my normal amount of lineups. Probably only like half of that. If I had like 100 something lineups, I'd probably have 5% fill, something like that. But I'm not, so he got cut.
So Justin Rose gained almost 8 strokes putting last week. However, that 18th hole putt to bogey cost me the cash line in the 2100. Fun stuff. What do you make of him? The 8 strokes putting, basically nothing anywhere else. I mean, not even a stroke anywhere else. What do you make of that? That's kind of been the theme of him. And at 10-2, I guess I would rather play JT at $200 less, who's obviously striking the ball much better.
Rose is tricky. He's a guy that I thought he's been underpriced. I've bought in spots.
Yep.
And I don't want to make excuses for him, but the Open was such a ridiculous anomaly. Shot 80 on Sunday in the horrible conditions. A couple other times he's really let me down. I don't have a strong take on him one way or the other, to be honest. I use him. I probably come in close to the field. I agree with you. I do think more often than not, especially on my main teams, I either went up to a guy like Rory, or I just said, you know what? I don't see a huge difference between guys like JT, Fleetwood, the guys we talked about, maybe, and steal that. And then the difference on the back end, instead of playing Ryan Palmer, I'm playing Sungjae Im sometimes. And that's a huge, huge advantage.
Definitely. So I think with only 70 golfers, we made it all the way to 10 o'clock. I was a little late trying to get myself moving here. So before we get out, let's give a hot take. We can give 2 if you want, but one of them that I wanted to do was give me your outside of the top 30 guys that are in the FedEx Cup right now that you think make it this week. It could be just one, actually, because there's give me your top guy that's currently on the outside that you believe might get on the inside by the end of this week.
I'll take it's not going to be a super hot take. I think that Decky will do enough. He's sitting right outside.
33 right now.
Yeah. Low 30s. I think he steals someone's spot with a really solid weekend.
All right, I'll give my hot take. I do think the oblique strain is mild. And I'm going to say Tiger ends up in the top 10 this week and gets it done and slides just into East Lake and maybe gives himself a little validity of picking himself for that 12th or one of those captain's picks in the Ryder Cup.
There is that narrative. Not that I think, don't read into it too much, but there's a lot of guys on both sides. Like Reed, yes, he just moved up a ton in the FedEx. He's on the outside in the President's Cup, though. He needs to play well to move in. And he loves, the match play style. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, so who would you get? So I would say that Corey Connors, who's had a great year, I would say that maybe Tiger ends up passing him. Harold Varner sits at number 29 after a hell of a week last week. Maybe those are the two guys to fall out. We got Francesco Molinari right there and Andrew Putnam. So a lot of the guys that we've mentioned are right on this bubble. We did see a huge move from Harold Varner to get inside this number. So of course we could see something like that again, but like Colin Morikawa sits 57, he's going to need a massive week. Something like Wyndham Clark or Rafa Cabrera, who we both mentioned, they're sitting down at number. Basically, the last one's in. The last one in, Joaquin Niemann, he would need a top 5, I believe, to make it. So maybe a long shot, but I'm not going that far as my hot take.
No, I would love to see, as much as he killed me, I would love to see like Grillo or Neiman make a move. You're talking massive going though. They can't just have a nice week. They'll miss by a mile.
Still good years for them. We won't have to worry about them and their status next year. We'll get to write about them as much as we want. So
we will.
Yeah, which brings me to the next point. Next week, we've only got 30 guys, but we're going to be here. We'll touch on the Euro tournament a little bit, and what we'll do is we'll give the synopsis of the first leg of the Corn Ferry Tour. Basically, the winner will guarantee himself. So we'll have a couple of guys to talk about there, and of course, the top 25 from the regular season. We'll just kind of give our opening thoughts of some rookies to look out for, and I'll have an article over the offseason detailing all of them. But until next week, Ben, why don't you just send us off?
Absolutely. Chat, rare form as always. We appreciate you. I did my best not to say obviously on every sentence, but
were they nailing you on that?
If you're playing that drinking game, you're gonna have to take a couple more sips.
They got a Ben Raza drinking.
Yeah, it's what people want. So I appreciate all our friends coming out. We love you guys, and we'll be back. I do think that it's going to be worth talking about in the sense that if DraftKings runs something, the new format, people are not going to understand it. And if we put our heads together on this show, we might be able to understand it. So we will try to steer you in the right direction. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy the second leg of the FedEx Cup, and we will see you next Wednesday. Take care.